There we are. We are recording in progress and a work in progress, I dare say. Well, I know I'm a work in progress in this ever deepening and expanding journey into Christ, into the body, into the truth of being. Yeah, so welcome everyone, and thanks for being here, and a welcome to everyone on the recording as well who might be seeing this in the future. You're very welcome to this space as well. Now, this is a workshop called Out of Touch, and yeah, we'll get down to the kind of meaning of that in a minute. But first off, I want to slow everything down. And I want to invite us all to pause, push, to push pause on, yeah, on that momentum that sometimes can occur in mind, often uninterrupted or even unnoticed. A momentum of thinking, of doing, planning, a momentum of feeling. You might call it a momentum of parts, if we want to use that language. A momentum of experience. The here in this moment is an invitation to notice the momentum of what we might have learnt to call self, life, and here is an opportunity to pause. I mean, what is this anyway? So I want to set an intention to move slowly today, to come back to the pause, to notice, to breathe, to give space, a little more space for relaxation and for being. And I invite all of us to take responsibility for this in the space today. And anyone at any time can pause, slow it down. Anyone can extend that invitation to the group. I want to say that there's no expectation here on you, and I'm going to include myself in that very much. There's no expectation here on me either. Uh, the invitation to step into a flow is extended. And if at any time you want to turn off your video, it's okay. You want to step away, that's okay. The participation here can look like whatever you want and whatever you need. If participation for you is lying down with your camera off, having a sleep, then that's how you need to participate, and your participation is welcome. And just to name that, like be free, be in tune with yourself, and yeah, be in the flow. So this is a new workshop, Out of Touch. I've never taught this workshop before, and it's really been inspired in me through my journey with the Wheel of Consent and a training called Like a Pro, which is with the School of the Wheel of Consent, Betty Martin's school. And, kind of my experiences from there, my learnings from there. I personally have been connected with the wheel and have been inspired and taught from it for a while. Um, but it's kind of landed in a whole new way for me. And and I really want to share that. I want to share yeah, this new insight, which is not just a mental insight, it's a somatic insight. It's an experiential, felt, embodied insight. And I'd love to convey that in some way. And so that's my intention really for this workshop. From what I want to offer in this space is the opportunity to deepen the felt experience of this work. Um, and I'm drawing on my experience of the Way of Mastery and Yeshua's pathway, and also Dick Schwartz's internal family systems therapy as well. So again, we're going to bring these three things together in some way, hopefully harmoniously and hopefully coherently and hopefully in a way that makes some sense to the mind and to the body. So we'll see how we get on. And yeah, it's no, it's not ambitious. It's an expression of reality that I'm seeking to extend. Hmm. I'm going to slow down again and take a pause and breathe and sip some tea. Mm. Ah, that's good. So out of touch, sort of wonderful expression in English. To be out of touch with something. Oh, you're so out of touch. Oh yeah, oh, those politicians, they're so out of touch. It's like that. It's such a great expression, right? It's to be apart from something, to be outside of understanding. Um, And then more literally, there's a more literal sense to this as well. To be out of touch, it's like I can be in touch. What is it to be in touch? And I'm in a different experience of being out of touch. I'm in touch. Like when I really feel into that, there's an immediacy to this experience. I'm in connection. Like there's something here around the word touch and connection when I kind of explore that. Outside of attunement, Jesus has offered. Yeah, right, outside of attunement. Attunement for me feels like, some kind of sound, like being in frequency, like in harmonic frequency or in a similar frequency, like being in tone with something. That's really interesting, actually, Jesus. I love that. I love that, and I think we'll kind of explore and play with that a little bit more later as well, because that's a whole other dimension to this workshop already. Oh my God, I better write that down. So yeah, being being out of touch, um, and being in touch, and the difference in the experience of what that is, and there's something about our whole experience on Earth as a human being, in which we are out of touch, right? If we look at the way of mastery, we look at the Course in Miracles, we look at the Christ path, we look at this idea of separation, right? To be separate from something is to be out of touch with it, right? So we've got these kind of really quite broad strokes of a spiritual understanding, right, from the way of mastery, in which we're looking at the way in which we're out of touch with creation itself. We're out of touch with God. We're out of touch with the truth of ourself. And that's separation. We've created this experience of being out of touch. And then we have these very simple experiences of like being in touch and out of touch, right? And this is kind of the core of what we're looking at today. And the core of what we're looking at today is the way in which we have become out of touch with the sensation of touch through the body. So we've become out of touch with touch itself. And then looking at how that experience also reflects this grander spiritual understanding of how we're out of touch with creation itself. And then hopefully we can begin to weave together how getting back in touch with our experience of touch can help us to feel more in touch with the reality of ourselves as an aspect of creation or as a sunbeam to the sun, as Yeshua so beautifully puts it in the way of mastery. So that's an overview of what we're doing here today. Really exploring the way that touch and our relationship to touch is a mirror to our relationship to creation and to God as well. Um, there's quite a lofty aim. I'm aware of that. But if you don't aim high, where are you going to get, right? It's like it's like we'll give ourselves that, and we're going to go for it. We're going to go for it, and we'll see where we end up. But I think interestingly, a lot of today will be about the exploration of what maybe we have placed in the way of being in touch. As Rumi said, and as Yeshua said, it is not our job to seek for love, right? It is not our love, it is our job to seek for those obstacles to love that we have created, and to, yeah, bring healing to those. So just to shine a little light on that as well, like yes, there's the simplicity of getting in touch, and also there may be a little bit of a journey of understanding what it is that we've placed in the way. Okay, so I'm going to underline that as our um, yeah intention for the course and the overview of what we're doing here today. And I want to talk a little bit about touch itself. Um, here's a radical here's a radical idea, right? You have never experienced the touch of anything else other than your body. And just take a moment with this, right? So here's an object, and we're going to play with objects today. And if we have time, we'll play with each other a little bit as well. But there's there's an object here, right? And as I touch this object, there's a process through my somatic nervous system. So there's a stimulation from the object that is stimulating the nerves that innervate my fingertips and the tip of my thumb, that then sends electrical impulses through the nervous system, up my arm, and into my brain, where those electrical impulses are translated into into sensation, or into the experience of sensation that I then am aware of. And as far as I'm aware, that process of awareness is yet to be unraveled by by any biologist or physicist or chemist, right? So there's still a lot of mystery involved in the experience of experiencing. But fundamentally, in a neurological perspective, I'm activating the nerves. So what I'm doing here is I'm receiving impulses from my fingertips, not from this, right? This isn't creating electrical impulse in my system, right? It's pressure. It's the experience in my body. I'm essentially feeling the nerve responses to the object, which is my own physiology. It's my own physical experience. So this is what's happening. And it can communicate all sorts of different things, depending on what's actually happening in the system and how it's being interpreted. But this is the sense of touch, right? This is the sense of touch that we have. And these nerve endings move out through the body, and there are places in the body that are very, very, very innervated. Innervation is the nerves coming into the actual physical organ of the skin or of the organs or wherever it is. And the fingertips, along with the mouth and the genitals, are the most innervated places in the entire body. So there's a huge amount of nerve endings, there's a huge amount of information that happens. Um, and I'm going to flag up at the moment as well that there's different ways that the nervous system works, and there's different neurons in the brain and impulses that move through the system. These are called sensory neurons. Okay, so these are sensory neurons. These sensory neurons are being activated in the fingertips and sent back up to the brain. I also have motor neurons. And motor neurons are neurons that are activated in the brain and travel down to give instructions to muscles and tendons, and they cause motion. They communicate motion. So it's really quite important, this distinction here, because as we'll uncover later on, very often when we engage motor neurons, we somehow have programmed ourselves to not fully take note of the sensory neurons. And that's a little teaser for what's going to happen later, but it's really important that this comes into our perspective. Um, so yeah, this is touch. And let's just take a moment to be with the body and to be in this moment. We're going to pause. And I'm inviting us just to bring awareness to sensation. Like, and the body actually is always generating an experience, always generating an experience of sensation. These sensory neurons, these sensor neurons are always firing in some way. We got this happening through the clothing that touches the skin. We've got it through any contact that we have with anything. We can feel the air moving across the hairs on the skin. So we're always in touch in some way. The body is always in touch. Here we have this incredible device for experiencing and for communicating that is always in touch in some way with the sense of sensation and touch. So what are we doing here, right? Here we are. We have this body. I'm assuming you have a body. If you haven't got a body and you're tuning in, maybe this isn't the right workshop for you. Just saying. But I wanna get the whiteboard out. I want to get the whiteboard out, and we're gonna have a little look here at the direct route to pleasure. Now, if you've been through this with me and or looked at the Wheel of Consent before, then you're gonna understand this already. Um, but we're uh, going to give ourselves a little. Okay, so here's hello. So here's this chap here, and inside here is the brain, right? We got this brain, we got this receptacle, we got this incredible computer, the that works on all of these electrical impulses and is just extraordinarily, absolutely extraordinary. And we're gonna just give this here like this, and then we got an arm. Oh yeah, you can invite that again, Jesus. Um, it's in the waiting room, is it? Okay, great. Let me welcome that in. So Jesus is just welcoming into the space his own personal note taker. Just to let everyone know, and um, I feel very happy for that to come into the space. If there are any objections to Jesus having his note taker in the space, let me know. No, John, are you okay with that? Yeah, great. Perfect. Thank you. There we go. Awesome. You're welcome. So here we are. Let's call, who is this? Who are we going to call this? We could call this I don't know. Suggestions on a postcard. Anyone got any ideas?
Do you know it's not showing on the screen?
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not showing.
Okay.
It's not
Thank
showing
you.
for me, let's put it that way.
Okay. Can everyone else see the whiteboard? Yeah,
Yeah,
you can see it.
I
Has
can
you?
see I can see a whiteboard. Yeah.
Okay. And Moira, you can't see the whiteboard. No. Okay. I wonder whether it's on a. Okay. Yeah, I think Moira's probably on an iPad, I would think. So maybe that's what's happening there. I'm not sure how to change that, Moira.
Maybe it appears as another participant window, so maybe she can just scroll and it should be there.
Yeah, that's an idea. That's an idea. Well, we can't hear you, Moira, because you're muted at the moment.
Yeah, if you carry on, and I'll just come up on my iPad,
No
on my
problem.
laptop.
Okay,
Yeah,
you carry on. I'm just going to put some eyebrows on our little friend here. Okay. So call him Yeshua. Okay, that's perfect. Thank you very much, John. So this is Yeshua, and Jeshua is he's pretty happy at the moment. Just drop my piece of paper. So Jeshua has this movement of neurons moving up through the nerves into the brain, and he's able to experience touch. Okay, so he's able to experience touch here. But things start getting in the way. When he was growing up, Yeshua loved to touch things, loved to experience things, loved to pick things up and play with them and put them in his mouth like this, and had this wonderful experience of touch and was exploring the world like this. Really enjoyed experiencing this and got a great deal of pleasure out of touching things. And this here now, this we are going to call the direct route to pleasure. This is the direct route to pleasure right here. And it goes from there back up into the brain here. So he's receiving these signals from his touch. They're going up into his brain. Um, okay. Whew. Bit of feedback there. So we've got the direct route to pleasure happening here. What do you think happens as we grow up, as we receive messages along the way? Like things start to get in the way of this direct route.
We start to add interpretation and associations from previous experiences.
Right, okay. So we start bringing the past with us, interpretations. Make that a bit smaller. Interpretations and the past start to interfere with what's happening. Okay, I'm going to let Moira in again. Here we go. Perfect.
And also like associations, like, oh, this seems similar to this other thing.
Okay, yeah. We create associations. Oh, got my caps lock on there. So we have different associations between these feelings. So when a child picks something up, like when a child goes to pick something up or goes to what can sometimes happen with that movement, like that very natural impulse that happens to explore the world. Like the child's in the playground and there's a big pile of dog poo. Right, there's a big pile of dog poo and the don't touch that. Yeah. Yes. And in this instance with the dog poo, right? It's a really good idea. Right? It's like, yo, don't touch that. It's filthy. Like, ugh. So and then like what comes with that? It's like there's an energy like when I do that, it's like, ugh. It's like there's an energy of disgust, right? So then there can be a transference of that. Don't touch that. So what happens with this don't touch that is that it has an impact on this flow of energy. Because when don't touch that comes with repulsion, the child doesn't know that that repulsion is not for this movement of energy up the arm. Be careful. Yeah, be careful. There's another good one. Be careful. So we don't touch that. We can have like this energy of repulsion, maybe. Be careful very much comes with a different energy, doesn't it? Be careful comes with the energy of fear. Like, be careful. It's like there's danger. So these come with a different flavor, but they do the same thing, right? They start cutting through this very natural flow of energy now starts to get very blocked as it comes up here. And the associations that we have here are fear. We start to experience fear with these ones here. That's not appropriate. Oh, I like that one, John. Thank you. Not appropriate. Now, what energy could come with that? Not appropriate. What is the message that goes along with that? Guilt. Yeah, exactly. So now we're really getting into like there's this free flow of energy, like there's this connection with the world. We know it's just happening through the body, but it's like connecting in with the world. Right? There's this young child who's exploring environment, who's exploring, his world, her world in a very innocent way. It's just like, yeah, touch is innocent. Right? And when we actually look at it, it's like if I'm touching this pen and exploring this pen, it really is innocent. But there's been so many associations along the way that have generated experiences of fear, of guilt, of shame. This association that we're doing something wrong, especially young children touching their or others' genitals. Yeah, really. And it's a huge one. Billy, don't put that away. Don't touch yourself there. That projection of shame on something that is so inherently innocent, so inherently innocent. We don't tell a child to stop touching their finger, right? Or to stop holding hands with another. In fact, we'd encourage that. We apply so much shame to genitals. So much shame. And this has a profound impact. It has a profound impact because in time, and I can't remember the statistic exactly, but it's something like every 4-year-old has heard the word no 20,000 times. Far more than any other word. So already there's this indoctrination into living in a world that is fearful, that you mustn't interact with in an innocent way. And because all of this becomes internalized in a psyche, we start to understand that actually we should be ashamed of ourselves simply for the natural curiosity of wanting to explore creation through the sensation of touch and the other senses as well. But it's touch that really gets the most imprinting. It's touch that tends to get projected onto with the most judgment. We're allowed to look, but we're not allowed to touch. And yes, there are times when it's completely not okay to touch, right? And there's a whole other thing, but this is the imprint that we get at a very young age, that fundamentally this route of pleasure, to receive pleasure through our touch, is somehow wrong. And we end up then closing down to this flow of energy. And it's this flow of energy that we're really going to be focusing on today. Because it's through this flow of energy that not only do we experience and open ourselves up to a direct experience of pleasure in our body, from our body, through our body, but it's also how we, on the level of touch, interact with the world and with creation itself, and allow ourselves to experience fully. And this workshop is very much about learning to experience through the body fully. Because if there is only God, right? And I got a teacher called Yeshua, right, who tells me over and over again that there is only God. If we are not engaged in the full experience of God, then we are limiting our own ability to know God. And this undoubtedly involves and relates to the body as well. Let me just see if I'm missing anything in here. No, got everything there. Okay, do we have any questions? I'm gonna close this down for now and come back to here.
Yes, I have a question.
John.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
That was surprising to me, and that it hit pretty hard. So I'm gonna ask for a pause.
Thank you. Hmm.
It kind of felt like my life story.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that, John. And I really, really appreciate the invitation into a pause from you as well. Thank you. Hmm. And I want to extend into this pause as well. You know, if there's anything else you want to share, or if there's anything else you'd like to receive in this moment, then you know we are here. I am here, and I know that we are here for you as well as being with you, John.
Thank you. I guess I felt some divine guidance to do this workshop because I didn't really understand what it was about. But this is exactly the kind of stuff I've been called to look at in my life, and it's connecting a lot of dots for me right now.
Thank you. I just want to say how much I appreciate your sharing and your vulnerability, which is beautiful, and the authenticity that you're bringing to this moment. I feel that, and it's precious, and I'm grateful. Mm. And I wonder if anyone else can relate in some way to the impact of this.
I want to just add that I've thought about this, shame regarding touch. And certainly I learned that growing up, but my earliest memories of this shame are like 5 years old or earlier. And that's always surprised me a little bit because I didn't think I really learned shame at that point. It's almost like it came with me, right into this life.
I think that that's a really interesting observation. And I would think that it's, from my experience of what life is, right? That's not limited to a body or one personality identity. I know how possible it is for stories to journey through the soul into the next incarnation, or to travel many incarnations down the line. I also know how the very genetic material of our body carries the emotional experiences of our ancestors through a process called epigenetics and methylation. And so it makes perfect sense to me, right? That we can experience shame, guilt, regret, and on and on and on from things that seemingly hold no context in our lives. On a personal level, I came in with a huge amount of shame from past lives that resulted in very intense experiences as a child that had no correspondence to my upbringing. Like, it was like, this makes no sense. Okay, I didn't have perfect parents. I don't think they exist. And my parents were flawed and damaged and broken and passed a lot of that on. But the intensity of my own experience was very much rooted in the past life experiences and also in the ancestral line experiences of my grandfathers. So it makes perfect sense to me that we can have experiences that don't equate logically, right, to what we're witnessing in our upbringing. And they very much impact the way that we relate to the body and to our environment and to other people. And in this workshop, our sense of touch and the way that we approach our sense of touch and the way that we might be out of touch with that and how getting back in touch with it can help us to see those places in which we have learned that it's not safe. Essentially, to be in a body and to experience fully through it. Hmm. Moira, I know you were going to raise your hand, I think, when we put the question out about relating to this. I can ask you to unmute. Here we go.
I was thinking I was still on my iPad and touching the screen wrong.
You were in touch with your screen.
Yeah. No, it was. I was literally just saying, yeah, I can relate to John. But it was also, I'd started to write a note of when you said, if there is only God, and then I couldn't keep up. And I thought, oh, I've missed, and I was going to ask you to repeat it, but then it just landed. There is only God, so this is God. And then I realized how out of touch.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before the others came on, I was telling a friend what this workshop was about. And this massive resistance came up within me of a part that has such a resistance to God. And yeah, just as you say, all of this shame. I had the experience of my brother is only like 16 months younger than me. And we were staying with my grandparents, and my grandmother caught us exploring each other's genitals, and it was like, no. And as John said, you forget how that actually, without realizing it, stays with you.
Mm.
And yeah, so that phrase, there is only God, and what that then means, yeah, just seeing in ways I never seen it before, of not looking after the body and being out of touch with God. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Moira. It's a beautiful share and illuminating. And really mirrors my own experience of this in terms of beginning, and I'm really at the beginning of this. I mean, I'm offering this workshop, but I'm right at the beginning of this, and this workshop is a part of my learning, right? Because I always end up offering workshops on the things I need to explore, right? And then the workshop is an exploration of that. It's very self-centered of me. I'm gonna completely put my hand up to that. But there's something here in my understanding around, like, very often that search for God is in the mind somewhere, or it's trying to understand concepts and ideas, and there's something visceral here. This is not about trying to find God through the body in the world, right? Through another body, for example, like a lot of like kind of tantric sexuality things about finding God through that connection. This is for me about exploring and understanding, just as you said, Moira, the immediacy of God in this moment here in this body. Like this body is God, and the awareness I am is God, right? And this stone is God. This stone's from Santa Fe. Actually, this is from Temple Canyon. This stone, I love this stone. But this is God, right? Like if I'm taking Yeshua literally, and I really am, because he is, like everything is God. So then there's this potentiality for me to know God in everything. And therefore to know the relationship of God with herself in this holy instant. And there's something so exquisitely beautiful in that. And safe and real and expansive and whole. Like that's the word for me. It's whole, right? Like it's purely whole. It'd be like every moment becomes purely whole because it's the divine interacting with herself through this body. Um, and that's really what I wanted to get to at the end of this workshop. And we've got there a little early. But hopefully we're going to move through some practices um, to facilitate a deeper felt experience of just that, which would be my deepest desire for all of us. And I want to add on to that is like the way in which we've used shame, we've used guilt, we've used these incredible energies to disrupt and disturb and cut off from that experience of the divine experiencing herself as us, and to create separation through that. So, it all makes sense. Jesus, yes.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention that if we remember this perspective that everything's God, even physical pain, right? So it's like physical pain is God, and I can know God through that vibration or that frequency, or so I think it helps to open the mind a little bit to receive more without so much resistance.
Thank you. And that's a big, thorny, controversial subject right there, huh? And maybe we'll do the masochistic version of this workshop next week. Um, But I want to like what comes to mind for me, and you're so right, Jesus, and there's a massive challenge in that. But I know in the Way of Mastery, Yeshua talks about the crucifixion, right? And I know in my experience, he's shown me the crucifixion from inside it. So he's taken me into his awareness, and we've gone through the crucifixion and the resurrection together. And it was a profound and exquisite experience of light. And he showed me how when the nails were being driven into his ankles, it was like each hit of the hammer was an explosion of light that cracked through the shells of his physicality and opened him to receiving the full light of Christ throughout the entirety of the body. And it was an ecstatic experience that he described as being sheer rapture. And and he says somewhere else, and this is really important, he says, I felt no pain because there was no guilt. And that's really interesting because it's that guilt that we're exploring today in a way that cuts us off from the immediacy of the experience, not only of pleasure in the system, but of God itself. That when there's no judgment, there's no guilt. And when there's no guilt, there's no separation. When there's no separation, there is no pain.
That's really useful because I right now and very often I experience just discomfort of insomnia.
Hmm.
So it's like my body feels very very tired.
Hmm.
Hmm. And then I guess the judgment is what makes it worse.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I don't often experience insomnia, and I can only imagine the challenge of that really on a regular basis. I can imagine it is psychologically and physically extremely difficult to live with as an experience. Um, and I can only, offer the understanding that the judgment always makes everything worse. Right? Just fundamentally, the judgment is a very difficult energy, to bring into any situation, and there is a great relief from forgiving judgment. And I think it can open the way for an experience of pure wholeness.
Yes, and I have played with this. So sometimes when I have a like bad insomnia, and then if I do my best to stay present, no, like as much as I can, no judgment, no guilt about it, and just go on with my day, it's way less painful. Um,
Mm,
but if the day starts with some resistance and I allow it to keep growing, then by the end of the day, I'm feeling really bad. So it really makes sense what you shared about Yeshua. Like if he was really so in touch with everything, so even the pain was part of the that ecstatic presence, I guess.
yeah. Yeah, I think that in that situation, he set a high bar, right? I I love that about, Yeshua being a teacher. It's kind of like, we can bring our pain to him, and he's kind of like, yeah, it's just, I did it through crucifixion, so, there aren't really any excuses. It's like it's like yes, but what about this? And it's like, no, that's still not going to do it. You know, there's no escape from him as a teacher, right? Um, and it
I
is
wanted
such an
to.
interesting line. John.
I just wanted to respond to Jesus. When I went through some of the worst insomnia of my life, it resulted in the first ever panic attacks of my life. And one of the most helpful things that a friend said to me when I was telling her, how crazy I felt, and I said, I only got 4 hours maybe of sleep last night. And she said, maybe 4 hours is all you really need right now. And it just opened my mind that I was in complete resistance because I thought, well, no, I have to have X amount of hours. But then when I just accepted, oh, maybe she's right. Maybe that's all I need.
Thank you, John.
I like that. Yes, what we want versus what we need, eh? There can be quite a gulf in me, I know, between those things. Okay. I think we've covered just about everything that I wanted to cover in that section, and I think we're going to take a short break. And then when we come back from the break, we're going to go into practice. And the practice I think everyone here has done before is called waking up the hands. And it's a practice in which it's really important that you're comfortable and that you can rest your whole back. If you can have head support, that's brilliant, right? It's really good to have head support. And the reason that we want all of that is because we want to allow the sensory neurons to calm down. Okay? So even if we're sitting up straight like this, we engage the core, and that means that sensory neurons are firing. And what I discovered in myself is that I find it incredibly difficult to receive sensory neurons when my motor neurons are firing. I think I've got them confused in what I've just said. I did, yeah. Okay, I'll go again. All right, so we're going to relax back because we want to slow down the motor neurons firing. And if we're engaging muscles, then motor neurons are firing. And when motor neurons are firing, personally, myself, I find it, and a lot of people find it very, very difficult to actually receive the sensory neuron messages whilst we're active. Okay. Um, and there's this whole journey to go on about being able to do something and receive pleasure. And we really trip ourselves up with this. It's very, very difficult. And we're really going to play with this. And I'm going to take us through the practice and we're really going to play with exactly that. And you get to see in your own self, you'll get to notice, oh, like there's something here that's maybe not quite wired up the way that it needs to be. And then we can work to bridging those gaps. So we're going to take 15 minutes and we'll come back at let's come back at 22 past. How does that sound? 22 past. And if you could be ready or have an object. Yeah, have an object with you, but we'll sort that out later. Okay, thank you. Okay, welcome back, everybody. And we are going to head into our practice of waking up the hands. So you're going to need a cushion for your lap. Hey, I didn't mention that. I'm sorry. So you want a cushion for your lap, you want to be super comfortable, and you want an object, something that you can explore in this. Okay. So just gonna give John a moment, and if you're there, John, and you want to keep your video off, that's perfectly okay. But could you just give us a little sign that you're there? Okay. We are gonna begin. So you're gonna want something comfy on your lap, John. Maybe a pillow on your lap if you've got something like that. Something to rest the arms on. Again, this is all about switching off those motor neurons so that they're not going to interfere with the flow of energy from the sensor neurons in our system. And yeah, we're doing this really because we're kind of wanting to separate out. We're wanting to slow everything down and separate out the different um, parts of experience in this situation. So we're going to be pausing right now and slowing everything down. And I invite you to breathe deeply. Now, does everyone have an object? Yeah, everyone's got an object. Perfect. And that object is in your hands and your arms are relaxed and on your cushion. Take breath. And we're going to explore for 5 minutes this object. I'm going to explore the object simply by touching it with your fingers and your hands. And we're not trying to understand anything. We're not trying to figure out what the object is or is for. The sole purpose of this is to generate sensation and to allow awareness to focus on that sensation. And that sensation is information. That we're receiving information through the fingertips. might want to slow down your touch. And you might want to try holding the object in one hand and then moving the object against the other hand as it is stationary. And notice any changes. It's becoming very aware of these sensory neurons firing in the fingers or the hands. Being received in the brain as sensation, just as pure sensation. We're not interpreting. Okay, that's 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes of being with directly the sensation of touch with this object. I'm going to ask you to put your object to the side and just notice how that feels as you do that. It's being very aware of your system of mind and body. I'm going to take a little bit of time for any reflections or observations, noticings, or questions that arise from that practice.
I became aware of, and it's one that I've come to know within the past few years. When I slow down and focus like that, I become very relaxed and even a little tired or sleepy. And there's a reaction to that, like, no, 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 no. We're supposed to be awake right now. And I try to just be with it. And I have noticed that if I just allow myself to totally relax and even allow myself to be sleepy, that it tends to kind of pass fairly quickly. I didn't notice my object as much as my hands and just the the coolness gradually turning into warmth, and kind of the mingling of those two.
Hmm. Thank you, John. I I want to acknowledge the presence of your manager part, as we would say in IFS, your manager part that wants to come in and stop you from sleeping or feeling drowsy, that you're meant to be awake. I just want to acknowledge that part and its role in wanting to keep you safe. Let it know that it's acknowledged. And I love how you noticed that if you give yourself to that experience of tiredness, you go through the experience and out the other side. Yeah, and I love that you became very aware of your hands and this feeling of coolness and the warming up, this noticing of temperature in the hands, which is very much a part of that somatic nervous system experience. Well, thank you. Mm. Moira.
Yeah, I was really feeling the object to begin with. And I got something that's smooth, but it's got a very light embossed pattern on it. And I was quite, yeah, just really feeling that. And then at one couple of points, it's really smooth. But then when I moved the object down the hand, that's when I really felt the hand, and it felt gorgeous.
Mm.
Just, yeah, just really feeling something being moved down the hand. It was a beautiful feeling coming through the hand. And so I thought, I'm going to try it on the other hand. And then the next thing I knew was you saying, we've come to the end of the 5 minutes. I completely zoned out. And that, I have to be honest, felt like a protection shutdown.
That's very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, because the other was just so wonderful.
Huh. Fascinating. And I would say that there's obviously something possibly of value in this practice
Yeah,
in this way with that other hand,
yeah,
in terms of just gently allowing something to arise, come to the surface that is
yeah,
cutting you off as awareness from that experience. And we're gonna practice this again, and we're gonna practice this again. So we're gonna practice it a few times, and we're gonna practice it for longer as well today. Because I know that there's something very valuable in spending time with this practice, and allowing those parts in mind to come up, um, that might be playing along or switching off. It's really interesting to hear you speak, Moira, to the experience of shifting to moving the object on the hand. And that's certainly something that I know in myself as an experience, as that hand is now not in movement.
Mm.
I'm not in that movement of sending signals to do. I'm switching off the motor neuron messaging, and within that I'm much more able to receive.
Mm.
And then there's another question deeper in that of like, okay, so why is it maybe I'm not so able to receive whilst I'm doing? What is it about that? And that can have multiple layers to it. And as someone who is really quite challenged in receiving for what I do, there's a deep exploration there, and this practice can help to unfold all of that. There's such richness in your share, Maura, because again, there's this difference between one hand and the other.
Mm.
And that's not uncommon. It's really not uncommon that we can have very different experiences in one part of the body to another part of the body.
Yeah,
Left, right, top, bottom, here, there.
you're right. There wasn't quite as much pleasure when I was doing it on the left hand as when I was moving the object down the right. But there was a real, it was when you brought us to, I thought, wow, there was a resistance to feeling that on the other hand. Yeah. Anyway,
Interesting.
yeah.
So there was pleasure,
Yes.
and then there was unconsciousness.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Okay. It's very normal, right? It's very, very normal. And it's very, very interesting, right? That we switch off the pleasure. And just as we saw on our diagram of the direct route to pleasure, there's all sorts of reasons for that. They don't have to make sense for them to be valid. And there can be, as we know, a whole journey of healing around hearing and listening to those parts, those places in mind that have what is, from their perspective, very valid reasons for shutting down to pleasure. And wouldn't it be wonderful to live a life in which we were fully open to the allowance of pleasure? Rich indeed. Hmm. I want to take a few breaths here. I want to talk about something else. I want to come back to our whiteboard, and I want to add something to it now, because this is the direct route to pleasure that we have, and we've just experienced something about that, right? Here we have ourselves in connection, and as we're exploring, it may be that sensation was pleasurable. It may be that we can allow ourselves to, like, that feels really nice. Right? It's then there's a whole part of the brain that lights up, right? There's a whole part of the brain here that lights up with this pleasure. when these sensory neurons hit the brain. It feels good. It feels good. And that's a lovely thing. And then we start to associate pleasure with shame. This association is made that it's not appropriate to feel pleasure. It's dangerous to feel pleasure. It brings guilt. So we end up pretty quickly in life actually switching off this. It's not okay. And we end up opening up something else. And what we open up is the indirect route to pleasure, which is perfectly innocent. It's another route to pleasure, and let's crank that up a little bit. So we end up with the indirect route to pleasure, and the indirect route to pleasure looks like this. We have a necessity for somebody else. Okay, so here we have, who's this? Who should we call this? Should we have maybe Mother Mary? have Mother Mary over here, right? And yeah, I'm gonna want that bigger. That'll do. So we got Mother Mary over here, and Yeshua now has learned. Actually, we'll just keep it quiet. But he's learned because Mother Mary has been so damning of his of his direct route to pleasure, because that's what she learned as well. Now, Yeshua over here is looking for feedback from here. So he's touching Mother Mary perfectly innocently. Got it. I think I'll redraw that. So here's there we go. So Mother Mary's here. And Jeshua's touching Mother Mary's hand, right? He's touching her hand. But instead of receiving this information up here, he's looking for her response. So now her response is how he's going to receive the gift of pleasure. So this is the indirect route to pleasure. And this really opens up as the primary route of pleasure when the direct route becomes closed down through fear, guilt, and shame. Now, can anyone think of some of the problems this might bring up? If we are now looking for our primary means of pleasure, Jesus, what have we got?
It would mean that it's out of my control, like it depends on others.
Exactly, yeah. So now we're dependent on somebody else. And I love that you brought up the word control, Jesus, as well, right? Because you're out of control, and if you're out of control, what do you want to do? Right?
Mm. And I would like to regain control.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Now, how might you regain control in this situation?
Trying to manipulate her
All
reaction.
right. Yeah. Now, who can relate to this in their life, right? Yeah, so it becomes very, very important, right? That this person over here responds to me in the way that I need because they have become my only source of pleasure. Now, very often, this is the dynamic of our relationships. And our own direct route to pleasure becomes less and less and less important. To the extent we even lose sense of what we might even want. And as long as this one's okay and is responding in the right way, then we'll make all sorts of sacrifices. Right? John,
And we're taught that that is an appropriate means. Like that's
absolutely.
socially approved of.
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's a really good point. This is appropriate. It's appropriate to seek approval. It's appropriate to please others. It's appropriate to give pleasure to others. But it's also a bit of a trap, right? So we can begin to see how we give up this, we internally legislate against, right? This direct experience of creation, this direct, joyful, and um, pleasant experience, this pleasurable experience of creation that we have here. We legislate, we say this is bad and wrong, shameful, fearful, and guilt-ridden. And instead we seek this dependent relationship in which we must often manipulate another in order to secure. We have to control another
This
in
is
order
Bloom.
to
The
secure.
card that lets you reclaim your focus, and here's how it works. First, open the Bloom app.
What's going on? Was that you, Jesus?
Yeah, I just clicked
Yep.
on something on the phone and then it started to make
No
noises. Sorry.
problem. You're fine. Absolutely fine. So yeah, this is there's an idea formulating here for me, right? Around the more spiritual framework of this. Okay, so we end up, I'm just going to explore this idea very quickly, Moira. Like we have this potential, we have this possibility for this direct experience of creation. And instead of allowing that, instead of really enhancing and cultivating the beauty of our direct experience of the pleasure that is inherent within creation, we make ourselves dependent on another's response in order to get that. It sounds very familiar, doesn't it? It sounds very much like that kind of relationship with religion for me, right? In which we put something or someone between ourselves through which we have to go through to get to God. So that's just a half-formed idea, and I'm throwing it out there as much for myself as anything, but there's something there for me that's tangible about this cutting off and then making someone else responsible. Right? Because that's really what we're doing here. Now we're saying you are responsible. Your reactions are responsible for what I'm receiving. And I'm going to make myself responsible for what your reaction is in order to get what I need. And if we look at the pathway of Yeshua, this is the antithesis here of the first axiom. I just want to, Jesus, I want to come to Moira very quickly because she had her hand up. And I'd love to just give the space to Moira.
Thank you. You've really just mirrored what I experienced yesterday. Yesterday afternoon and evening, I was really exploring this people-pleasing aspects and seeing how I wanted someone else to be responsible for me and to, feel good. All of that, whichever direction it was going in, of indirect pleasure. And then this inner guide asked me, how long do you want to delay your happiness?
Mm. Mm.
And it was just like, wow.
It's a big question, Moira.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your answer? Like,
Yeah. Really, really having to be with those patterns.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. But that, and what you've just said is that clarity of what I'm doing to myself, of delaying my happiness with this direct pleasure for me.
Yeah. Which is available when?
Now,
Right. Yeah, thank you so much, Moira. This is really helping it to clarify in myself what you're sharing. Because it is available now, right? I don't need to wait on someone else before I acknowledge the reality of my experience of creation, God, self. So that word immediacy keeps coming through in this for me. And I'm gonna put it here on the diagram. It's immediate. It's immediate. But this is always going to be delayed. Oh gosh. Wow. And I want to put here as well that I have choice. Jesus? Delayed and
Yeah.
uncertain. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Let's put that up there as well, because it certainly is, isn't it?
Yeah, this might be like very silly, but I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Good.
Um, let's say I'm gonna use like a personal thing that I'm going through. So I like a girl, woman. And now I notice that my parts, my brain, it's very agitated, usually trying to get something from her, like some kind of response, some kind of approval, some kind of invitation to come closer or something. Um, and that's not happening, obviously, at the moment. And then something like this feels like, so you just have to accept the fact that it's only you who can give you pleasure, and so like kind of forget about your desire. And it's not the desire, maybe forget about the neediness, but it's really hard to let go of the habits of expecting getting pleasure from others. It's extremely hard, I would say. And my fear is that, well, it might take me into complete isolation, because if everything is within me, then I can go to the cave and just touch rocks there and meditate, and I should be very happy.
Oh, Jesus, I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm just going to take a breath with that. I think firstly I want to say like there is nothing wrong with the indirect route to pleasure, and that I think that it's a beautiful aspect of being in creation as a human being. And I want to say that I would not want to give that up. And I want to say that if it's my only source to pleasure, then I'm limiting myself in my experience as a human being and as a soul. So this isn't about getting rid of this.
Mm.
Yeah. It's about opening this up again. So that then this is a way in which we can really nourish ourselves so that we are no longer dependent on this.
Mm.
And in relationship, that's incredibly important because then we're letting this one off the hook of having to satisfy our needs through their approval and their response to us.
How would you say that you can provide approval for yourself without others?
Well, as somebody who has been going through exactly that journey for 20 years, I would say that it is very much about coming into connection with those places within that hold those needs and learning to bring them love. And I know that that sounds simplistic, and I know that the reality of it is often far more difficult than can be expressed in a diagram or in a few sentences. But I do know that the parts will respond in time,
Mm.
and they do respond in time. And it's often incremental. In my experience, my system, it's incremental. It's not like, there we go, I brought love to that, it's done. It's like, oh, now that part has less need for this kind of experience or for this kind of response from somebody. And that feels liberating. and the part learns to trust, right? That when it gives up a little bit of its need and receives from somewhere else, that you know that actually there's some benefits to that, that it's a good thing, that it's not losing out. And then it can become a little bit easier maybe to bring that experience of love to those parts.
Mm. I've heard before that many of the wounds around approval, they happen in relationship, like whether with our early friends or whatever people were around us when we were growing up. So if it happened in relationship, like it must be healed in relationships, and that's what I heard. Um, but then I don't know if something like IFS can be, well, it's inner relationship, right? Like it's a kind of relationship, maybe not in the physical world, but it's a kind of relationship.
Yeah, I totally get that. I and I understand that perspective, that if it's happened in relationship, then it must be healed in relationship. I would say, I think it's different coming from the Christ path, and I think it's different when we have Yeshua's grounding, right? Because there's something so fundamentally and radically absolute about the Christ path. And that's what propels me, that's what brings me through my journey. And in that sense, then every relationship that you experience is a reflection in some way of the relationship you have with God. And so if you've experienced rupture in relationship, it's because it's mirroring the rupture that you have with God. And I would say that you're not dependent on relationship to heal. But I would say that it can show you where healing is required. And it can be healing to be in relationship. I'm in a relationship, that has a lot of rupture. And it shows me where I'm out of alignment with the truth within myself. And it shows me where I am not in forgiveness. It shows me where I'm in judgment and blame. It shows me all of these things. And it highlights more than it resolves, but the resolution for me comes in through my relationship and the healing of my relationship with God.
Mm.
So I think that relationships are necessary, and I'm glad of that. I think they're essential, whether that's a friendship or a romantic relationship, or whether it is our relationship internally with our parts, which are relationships as well, and actually where we hold the power truly to bring healing. They are essential. Relationships are the means of our salvation. I do not doubt that at all. But not necessarily because resolution comes through relationship, but because they show us where resolution is required.
Mm. Okay, got it. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, I would agree with that. What came to me was there is nothing outside of yourself. So if a relationship is showing you something, then that's something that you need to look at within. It really has nothing to do with the other person. And you just explained, I understand now why my previous two relationships, significant relationships, ended. That little drawing laid it out really perfectly. And this is fascinating because I've felt drawn to exactly what you're teaching, that I need to resolve this within myself. And that's why the relationships have ended. It's like, no, you're not going to be able to do it that way. This is between you and you.
Mm.
And just one petty thing, if you could give Mother Mary just a little hair, that'd be great.
All right, let me just open up the whiteboard again. And what color hair does Mary have today? Golden maybe or black.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
probably she's probably got dark hair, I would think, Mother Mary, huh? How's that? Okay. Yay. It really is fascinating. I mean, and you know, there's a whole other workshop, right, on holy relationships to be done as well. And you know, I think that probably Lauren and I will do something around that because you know our intention is holy relationship, and what we realize and recognize along the way is that holy relationship for us is birthed out of special relationship, and it's really moving through all of these places, right, that reside and abide in a sense of lack because they feel disconnected from love and they seek and search through another for that connection, for that reconnection with God. And of course, it can't actually happen through another. And holy relationship is that relationship in which two have looked within and found no lack. I love that line from Yeshua. I mean, how beautifully condensed and so utterly descriptive, and how incredibly expansive that is when you start getting into it, right? To look within and find no lack, and then come to relationship through that from our wholeness. And really that's what holy relationship is, right? It's a relationship in which two can come in their own wholeness, not to seek anything from the other. And generally, in my experiences, relationships will flag up and show us exactly where we are seeking, exactly where we are trying to get, exactly what we're trying to take. And you know, this work around touch is very much about learning again, like to receive directly for ourselves, but also to show where we are blocked for that. And therefore, if we are blocked for that, you can bet your bottom dollar we're trying to find that from somewhere else. Right? You know, and other people are a great source of, you know, potentiality when it comes to satiating needs, aren't they? Surely that's what they're there for. So yeah, it really is fascinating to bear witness to, you know, what we do in relationship, and how, and it's not a nice word sometimes to receive, but how we try to manipulate and control, you know, and I totally see that in myself, and it can be really, really painful sometimes to bear witness to the profundity of that, you know, of how I want to make sure that people show up a certain way. You know, one of my tactics, one of my, you know, the one that I found probably the most difficult is to try to evoke pity. That's a really big one for me. Not so much now. I really feel like I've come through a lot of that, but by God, I would try to manipulate through being a victim, and presenting myself in that way. And I've kept myself very small and very poor, you know, because that's how I've learned to survive, right? Like my parts learned to survive through being poor and playing the victim and evoking pity and getting other people to take responsibility for my needs. You know, and when I lay it out like that, I could still feel a little shudder inside of shame, right? Because it's not the easiest pattern to own, right? But because I've been so closed off, right, to my ability to receive directly from creation and from God, I've had to formulate strategies in order to survive in the world. Okay? And these strategies play out here because I'm cut off here. I'm not able to receive directly. And this is just from a hand, but it's really through the whole beingness, right? I could say that this is symbolic of my whole soul, right? I've closed down to being able to directly receive from God. And so I try to get all of my needs met through all sorts of strategies. And we all have different strategies that play out. But I've made the world and everyone in it, in a sense, a part of the game that I'm playing in order not to awaken myself to the reality of God. So I'm going to engage in these qualities of manipulation, coercion, subterfuge, in order to try to take, right? This is what this is. Try to take what I believe I need to survive on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a psychological level, and on a spiritual level in the world. And that can be challenging to see. John.
Does does the prevalent pornography addiction, like, is that explained by this model?
Well, yes, it can be, right? Because there's like you're trying to take from that imagery, right? You're trying to get something for yourself, some kind of excitement, some kind of energetic. You're using it to stimulate your own sexual life force. But instead of directly stimulating your own sexual life force through being in direct contact with your own physicality and experiencing pleasure through sensation, you're actually making the other responsible. In this case, the image of a stranger having sex. You're making them responsible for your own life force energy, your own
What
sexual energy.
what about sexual fantasies? Is that kind of like the same, with the same
It's
explanation apply?
Yeah, it's very, very similar. It's very, very similar. In fact, there's a whole process in somatic sex education around learning to stimulate your own sexual life force energy purely through touch with yourself, expression. And I would say it's very difficult because we're so entrained into needing this stimulation outside of ourselves or in imagination, both of which ironically ultimately detach us from the immediate felt sense of our own sexual nature. Right? The experience of fantasy takes us out of the body. The experience of pornography brings our awareness to a screen, not to the immediate sensation and direct pleasurable experience of our own nervous system. There's very much an indirect route. Could you clarify that, Jesus, for me?
Yeah, you mentioned that in the Somatic Sex Institute, they have this practice, um, which is just getting to pleasure without anything else.
Yeah.
Is that like masturbation without imagery, or
Yeah, it can be, and it's no different than what we're practicing here.
okay. So yeah, that was
It's
my
it's
question. If
it's
this is the
it's
same, yeah.
yeah, it's this practice, waking up the hands, is that practice.
Mm.
But we start with the hands, right? Because as soon as you start bringing arousal into the practice, generally we start getting lost in our patterns
Mm.
and habit because we are generally so habituated to certain forms of touch and ways of thinking about that touch that it's very, very difficult to stay present, conscious, and focused when in arousal or touching genitals. And in fact, one of the practices that we work with at our retreats, mine and Lauren retreats, is something called pleasure mapping, where you're simply using this simple technique to map the body for experiences of pleasure and trying to stay as focused as possible with it. Right? Because there is something exquisite that can be opened up through this. And then we can extend this with practice through the body, but it is a complete retraining of the way that we experience through the body. And generally, we don't even know that we need it
Mm.
until things just start to click with this simple practice of waking up the hands.
Mm. Could
And then
you,
it's like,
uh,
oh,
sorry,
yeah, no, it's okay.
could you go back to the drawing?
Yeah, sure, no problem. Let me just see.
Okay, so in here, all the guilt, fear, shame are the things that are blocking our ability to um, receive, I assume, pleasure only or other things. And I would say that those things live in the mind, but then understanding the mind as body mind, like it's not only the brain, but it's the whole body. It's getting these blocks or these
Yeah,
neurons where shame is stored, where guilt is stored. So let's say that I go to a retreat and then I do some somatic practices there and I release a lot of guilt and shame. Um, but then my mental patterns are the same. So next time I go into whatever kind of relationship, I just reaffirm the same shame pattern. Like, isn't that like a way of never getting out of the same blockages? How do you actually unblock it? Maybe just staying really present with the patterns, right?
I think it's a great question, Jesus, and thank you so much for bringing it up. This is why, for me, anyway, I like to work somatically with the practices that we're practicing today, but I also like to help people take deeper um, into their system through IFS, internal family systems, through working with the mind and with the psyche. And I also really like to work spiritually with Yeshua and Mary and work with the framework of the metaphysic that I understand through the way of mastery, looking into soul history, looking at past lives, looking at ancestral lines as well, all through an IFS perspective. So for me, healing is a process of working on every level. And by every level, I mean working with the body, as we're doing today, but also working with the mind and working with the soul. And I think that when those three things can converge, can come together, then healing can truly occur. Like real deep alchemy can actually occur, so that patterns aren't repeating. And that's what I would call, and what IFS would call systemic change. and systemic change is where the whole system has adopted that change and transformation. And it's not easy to create systemic change within ourselves. It takes time and patience. And often, as I said earlier, it's incremental in my experience. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's like, oh, that's just gone. Like, oh, that's integrated. That's fully different now. But generally speaking, it's an integrative thing that is incremental. Baby steps. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And yeah, John, we can absolutely take a break. Thank you for requesting that. And it's going to take a moment, and just going to check in. Yeah, we're going to come back. We're going to come back for more practice. Is there any more questions just before we go on a break? Okay. We'll take another 15 minutes, and we'll be generous with ourselves, and we'll relax, and we'll rest, and we'll pause, and we'll breathe, and we'll use the bathroom if we need to. And all is well. And we will come back. We'll come back at 1:30. Okay, we'll come back at 1:30. Okay. I can't remember what time we said we'd be back. Was it 40, 35, 40? I can't remember.
You actually said 1/2 past, but that wasn't 15 minutes.
Oh, was it not? My
No.
maths failed me. Back to school is yeah. Thanks, Maura. Oh, was it 25 past? It was, wasn't it? It was 25 past, and I said come back 15 minutes over at 1/2 past, which was 5 minutes. I got terribly confused there. No rush, everyone. I'm gonna just take your time.
That's why I was thinking, like, I don't understand this English way of saying time.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it wasn't lost in translation. It was lost somewhere in my mind with my capacity to count numbers um temporarily.
Yeah, when you said 15 minutes, it was okay, 11:40.
I know because I made a cup of tea and then I went to the bathroom and I just picked up my phone and then I looked at my watch and it was like it was 32 minutes past. I thought, oh my God, I'm 2 minutes late back. This is outrageous. And I thought, it hasn't been 15 minutes. So then I was like all in a confused state about what I'd said and what was true. I was giving out fake news, wasn't I? This is yes, the modus operandi of the time. So yeah, we're just gonna we'll take time for John to come back. And then we're gonna have a little chat about identity, and then we're gonna head back into the practice. And we're gonna have a good chunk of time with the practice as well, you know, just so that we can really drop in. What I've noticed is that doing it for 5 minutes can be radically different from doing it for 20 minutes, you know. So we're gonna play around with that a little bit.
How often do you recommend doing this?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? It kind of gets added to the smorgasbord of spiritual and somatic practice. There's so many things that we're meant to be doing on a daily basis, and I think the beauty of this is one of those things that you can just kind of do at odd times. It's kind of like you can just find yourself fiddling with something, and it's like, okay, well, why don't I bring some awareness to this and like really relax my body and really get into the thing. It's like I could do it while I'm out, if I'm standing in a queue, if I've got to wait for 20 minutes in the car for something, I could just do 5 or 10 minutes of waking up the hands. It can just be something that just creeps into, it's like, okay, let me tune into this. Let me bring my awareness to this movement of electrical impulses through the body, and and you see if I can offer as little obstruction as possible to the experience of that, and really that's all we're doing is we're just really practicing not offering resistance and obstruction to something very fundamentally simple. Um, but so yeah, as often you can't overdo it. I mean, as often or as little as you want. And it's fascinating to have these questions about masturbation and about, coming into contact with the body in that way, because it's an obvious way in which, people do touch themselves, and not everyone does in this way, and that's perfectly okay too. But to bring this quality of awareness, and what I experience is that actually it rewrites my whole structure of what pleasure is. Often pleasure is a very prescribed thing, especially with pornography, right? It's like that's what pleasure is. And that's how you get to pleasure. You have to touch yourself in these ways, and I must say from my own experience, like masturbation is probably one of the most habitual ways of touching self that there is, because it's often happened the same way for a very long time without question. And so it becomes a very habitual process and practice. I know how to go through it to get to where I feel like I need to get to, as opposed to it being a process of exploration, of mapping, of curiosity. Right? When was the last time you brought curiosity into masturbation? I'm gonna hazard a guess that maybe never. All right. Because it is, yeah. Anyway, that's a whole other workshop, and a good one as well. A very good one. Oh, okay. So I wanna talk a little bit about this kind of reinforcing loop that happens through identity and the process of losing touch with touch directly and becoming dependent on indirect touch. Is that, from a young age, we are taught that we are our body, right? That it's not questioned, really, in Western culture and society. It's very obvious you are a body, right? Many people when I was growing up would say that you only have one life, right? There was no spiritual kind of understanding. So you're this body, and this is where you are, and it's all that you are. It's everything. And then that movement to explore through the body that I thought I was. I'll make it about me. So, like, I'm exploring through this body. I am this body. I am exploring. I am these sensations. I am this experience. And then it's like, stop that. Don't, oh, that's disgusting. You're that's you get programmed with all this shame, right? But I am the body. This touch is who I am in that sense. So therefore, the way that I touch becomes very, very associated with who I am. And that can be that I'm worthy of shame because I'm doing something wrong. And I close down that direct pathway and open up the indirect. And now all of a sudden it's about the way that I touch other people and their reaction and their response that gives me my pleasure. So it's very, very, very important the way that I touch, not only because it's giving me the pleasure, but because it's communicating something about who I am. So I think along the way, many people, myself included, learn to put pressure on the way that we touch. Because not only is it giving us the feedback of the other person's response, oh, this touch is good, this touch is bad, but this touch is good means that I'm good. This touch is bad means that I'm bad. So there's this deeper level of identification with the body that further complicates things.
I used to think that I was a great lover because, my lover was giving me that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So what did that feel like? Right? You're a great lover also translates to you being good, right? It's something that's affirming to the core identity of who you are.
And in the meantime, I was completely disassociated from that direct route.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Indeed. I've gone through some of the somatic sex education training, and one of the most common things right? That men generally, women as well, but most common for men, when they come to exploring their sexuality, the question is asked like, what do you want? Oh, I want whatever she wants. Right, as long as she's happy, I'm happy. Like it doesn't matter what's happening because there's such disassociation from feeling what's happening in this body that we put everything on the woman or the man, depending on your orientation or whoever, or you know, whatever's going on there. But it's that expression, and then the amount of pressure that that then puts on the partner to maybe even perform in a certain way to give the feedback that's necessary for that person to feel worthy and validated. So what a muddle and what a mess, right? It's like I'm gonna perform for you if you'll perform for me. Right? And the only thing here important is your pleasure so that I can take pleasure from your pleasure so that I don't have to be in touch with my own. Because getting in touch with my own pleasure, that's a journey I'm not quite ready for. And it may be that the woman is saying like, yeah, well, I'm not ready for that either. So I'm just going to pretend that I'm in pleasure so that you can take pleasure from my pretense of pleasure. And then we can be happy, right? Yeah, we can be happy, but not authentic, right? No, because it only takes the mask to slip a little bit. It's like, oh, what happened for you? It's like, oh, I chose not to fake my orgasm this time. It's like, what? So, it's like, how dare you? How dare you get honest with me in this relationship? That's not okay. But this is the effect, right? This is the effect of not being in direct touch with touch. That we then need to create ways in which we can learn to validate ourselves through the approval of others, through their responses and reactions. Instead of simply being in touch with that validation that comes from being in touch with creation itself. And in this workshop, that's reflected through our relationship with direct pleasure through touch in this body, through opening the nervous system. I just want to go back um, to the image because it was something that Jesus was saying before. You were talking about. Oh, I don't want this one. I want the old one. And what I want to say is, oh, I keep opening the wrong one. Maybe I'll open the board and then talk because I'm obviously not capable of two things at once. There we go. There we are. So this is what we're opening ourselves up to. What we're opening ourselves up to is the flow of electrical impulse through the body. Right? This is a flow of energy that we've closed down. We've closed down this flow of energy, and by closing it down with the power of mind, we have affected the nervous system. This is where mind and somatics interact and interrelate. Through traumas, micro traumas or major traumas, we can suppress the flow of energy through the nervous system. And when we do that, we shift and change the experience that we have as consciousness through the body. Another way of describing this energy is life force. Another way of describing it is life itself. We literally close ourselves off to the experience of life because it hurts. But in that closing off, we also close off to pleasure, not just to pain. Sexual energy, exactly that, Jesus. That life is sexual energy. This is just what the flow of life is, and we fear it. John, there's another question here, I think, from you. If another person is involved, is that then by default the indirect route to pleasure? It's a really good question. And no, it's not. No, it's not by default at all. And in another workshop at another time, we will explore, we won't have time today, but we will explore how to be in connection with another person and take that pleasure for ourselves directly. And that opens up a whole new field. And really, this is about, for now, just getting in touch with your own ability to experience pleasure through sensation with an object. The issue becomes that when we put another person in there, we tend to default back to our indirect patterns. So getting good at this here now is the doorway to being able to remain in that direct experience with another. But it's so tempting to start going into like, how was it for you? It's like, what's their response? How are they reacting to this? Like instead of just being so focused on the sensation in your own body whilst being in connection with another's body. And because there's a whole framework for this in the Wheel of Consent around agreements, which are incredibly important, and trust and the rest of it. And there's a whole other workshop. But no, it's not by default at all. However, your mind will generally want to make it default. That when you're with another, you go into indirect routes. Because those patterns of caretaking, codependency, manipulation are so prevalent and ingrained into these neural pathways. And really we're about rewriting not just the neural pathways in the brain, but the entire nervous system through these practices so that we can experience ourselves as the flow of living creation in the body. Just that. Just that. Okay. Jesus.
Sorry, one quick question.
No, it's
Um,
good.
so something like using psychedelics to is that something that we can use to help awaken the hands or the sensations or the direct route? And then also if we do that, then it seems that once the effect is not there, we just go back to our regular patterns usually. But in my experience, like after some ceremony or something, like something shifts a little bit. So that's
Yeah,
well, like
I think it's a really good question. I think psychedelics can be incredibly helpful. They can show us things. Right? They can give us a different perspective and they can open us up to seeing differently in our own system and mind. And I think that they're very effective at that. I think that there is potential through psychedelics for some systemic change. Um, and I would say that, you know, it cannot replace the, I want to say the gentle and sustained transformation of rewiring that comes from weeks and months and years of practice. And I think that our systems are set up in such a way that they do change slowly, systemically. And I think that that's wise because often there are parts that are holding great trauma that simply aren't ready to change and will not receive the imposition of change and shouldn't receive the imposition of change. And it takes time to build relationship, trust, to to slowly steer them into a better way of being and seeing and perceiving and feeling and experiencing. So yeah, I think the neuroplasticity, I want to say the neuroplasticity of the whole system takes time. The systemic change takes time, and absolutely psychedelics can be helpful, but they're not going to replace persistence and commitment and dedication, sadly. Otherwise, we could all just go and take some and be done with this journey, right? But then what do we learn? It's like what are we here for? We're here to, I think, take notice of the minutiae and through that deepen our felt embodied experience of God. Hmm. Okay. Everyone ready for practice? Great. Have you got your cushion? You're in a comfy chair. You're comfortable. I'm gonna get my cushion. Like get an object. Maybe have a couple of objects. Maybe have a few objects. And it could be anything. Like I've got a nasal inhaler here that I'm going to explore. Then I got a crystal, and I'm going to take this tuning fork here as well. So I got a selection of things. Um, and I'm gonna like hold a loose intention around this practice. It's like can I really open myself to experience like the flow of life through this body? Like what would that feel like? What would it feel like to open myself a little bit more to the genuine flow of life through this body, through the sensation of touch? So we're going to slow everything down. And we are going to do this for 20 minutes. And we're starting now. And bringing our awareness to our fingers, to our hands. Wondering how focused we can be with our awareness on this sensation, this movement of energy through the body, stimulated through contact with an object. Seeing if we can isolate maybe in our awareness this flow of sensor neurons. As we move very slowly and notice very closely what it is to touch and to receive information. We are literally getting back in touch with this quality of experience that touch is. You may want to explore and experiment a little bit with holding the object and then moving the object against the hand. You might want to try the palm of the hand or the back of the hand. You may want to take your object onto the wrist or the forearm, getting a slightly expanded canvas on which to explore the sensation of stimulating these nerve endings in the skin in your body, the body you are bringing awareness to, that you are inhabiting. It's bringing lots of awareness to the point of contact and allowing your experience to be just what it is. There's no right and there's no wrong. This is an exploration, that's all. An exploration of your relationship to this experience of touch. And you might want to try slowing any movement down. And you might want to try speeding the movement up. And you might want to try some tapping, some squeezing. And you might want to swap out your object and pick something else up. And all the while noticing how it feels to be in touch with this sensation. And if you find that you are wandering off in mind, your consciousness is being distracted or deflected or taken away from the immediacy of the connection of touch, just come back. Take a deep breath, come back to the sensation, to the immediacy of the connection between your hands and this object. You might notice feelings arising. You may notice different sensations coming in different parts of the body. You might notice images in the mind, thoughts, memories. Just allowing space for everything to be as it is, just taking note and noticing. And then coming back, simply coming back to the practice. This is practice time. And waking up the hands because they've been asleep. And waking ourselves back up to the experience, immediate touch, sensation, and pleasure. And can we allow this to be a pleasurable experience? And what if this flow of sensor neurons moving through the nerves of your arm and shoulder, fingers, into the brain? What if this was simply the flow of life itself? Just the flow of life informing itself of other aspects of life, experiencing itself. And you get to bear witness to that. You get to be a part of that. You get to experience that in all its innocence and play. What if you didn't need to get in the way of it anymore? What if you didn't need to make it wrong to try to keep yourself safe from a voice that spoke to you in error, from a place of fearful falseness within its own system? What if you didn't have to obstruct life in this moment and in this way, that you could allow fully the experience of sensation? You're going to have just a few more minutes now, a few more minutes. And if you haven't swapped your object, I would invite you now to swap your object out, just to take something else up, to put another stimulus in your grasp. Just notice how you feel putting one object down and picking another up. Just noticing all the time what's happening in mind, what's happening in body, what's happening in soul. Just offering a quiet word of reassurance into your system. This is perfectly safe. This is an incredibly safe experience to be engaged in. Nobody is going to make you wrong. Nobody is going to tell you off. Nobody is going to shame you. Nobody is going to judge you. That you are fully supported from every direction and in every way to allow this flow of sensation through the hands and the arms. You now have 1 more minute, just 1 more minute. The invitation, if you want to, and if you feel to receive it, is simply to bring all of your attention to the connection point, to the place in which your fingers, your hands are meeting with that object, and relaxing and opening your system to receive the information that is offered by your own touch. Notice all of your attention that you can muster and bring to the points of contact that you are creating with your object. We're going to gently transition out of our practice. It's been 20 minutes of being with your objects, and more importantly, being with your sense of touch and the movement of energy through your own body, which is your interface with the world, your means of experiencing and communicating with the divine reality of the world. And we have time and space for questions and sharing, reflections and observations. Moira.
Thank you. As soon as you said we were going to be doing the exercise for 20 minutes, my parts panicked. I could feel them. It was like, oh. But what I was yawning throughout the whole thing, which for me usually means energies moving. Again, moving the object over a still hand, I was able to feel much more sensation in that hand rather than, I think you said I had to focus really hard if I was moving the hand on the object. But then, whether I've jumped the gun or what, I just put all objects down and just used my fingers. And then what blew me away was when I was moving my fingers on a still hand, I got pleasure from both the hand that was moving and the hand that was still. And that felt amazing. But, and I do experience this frequently, it's like I've got a whole load of trapped energy in the yoni that just cannot move. And it becomes so uncomfortable. Towards the end, I had to stop because it was just too uncomfortable. And I know it's that fear of life force, God moving fully through me. So today is really, and it isn't just when it's about touch, it can come up often if I am on a webcast and, you know, it's spiritual topics, it can happen then. Yeah, so I really want to explore that with my parts.
Mm.
Yeah, because it
Mm.
feels like just so much could change with allowing that energy to fully move. Yeah, thank you.
Mm. Thank you, Moira. Yeah, I really honor the vulnerability in your share and the honesty that's present. And I want to reflect back that I hear about this stuck energy in your yoni and how that, you know, makes itself present or known at times in these practices, processes, or being around spiritual energy, and how they're kind of fundamental. And that's my word, not yours. All right, but I want to say it.
Totally fundamental.
Yeah, yeah. Fundamental to your experience and expression.
Yeah. And life,
Mm.
my life, all the life. And
Mm.
I'm really, really feeling now I can no longer ignore this or push it away.
Oh, are you sure?
It's just coming back to that question, how long do you want to delay your happiness?
It's a big question, isn't it? I love that, Moira. I love that. And I'm curious to know what your response is to that
No,
question. No more.
it's really, really no more.
Yeah. Mm. I think this is really important, I think, in a way, because you know, the way that we cut off from this sensation, which as we're kind of exploring and learning, all of us, that this is the way in which we've closed down to receiving and experiencing truly the flow of life through our system. And this is just the hands. You know, and we start with the hands because they're very significant in terms of this closing down. But there is a huge amount of energy in our root, in our genitals, in our anus. The base, the root of our, the life force energy there is so condensed. And yet we can approach it in the same way. And actually we can simply use the hands as a means by which we can access the unblocking of all of this energy. And it's a very neutral, innocent, easy, or easier way sometimes. And I would say that getting the hang of this energy in the hands is kind of essential before we move to other areas of the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, yeah, go on, Maura.
No, I was just going to say, because I could feel it was so sensual in my hands.
Yeah.
And it's the most obvious thing, but it just dropped in when you said about the genitals. That is where life is given. that's where life comes through, whether it's the
Mm.
woman giving birth or the guy, the fertilization, that's the life-giving area in the body. And I hadn't really, and connecting that with the blocking of the life force energy.
Mm.
Thank you.
Mm. Thank you, Maura. That's
So obvious.
well, it is and it isn't, right? I mean, the way that you're describing it is bringing deeper realization to me, right? So, and I don't know if that's a shared experience in the group, but it's certainly, it's like hearing it come through in this way. It's like, yes, it is obvious, but that doesn't mean that it's known, right? How many obvious things are only obvious when we become aware of them? It's yeah, I really get it and I appreciate it and I feel a deeper recognition of that within my own system through your sharing. So thank you. Hmm. Hmm. Very often in this work, people want to go straight for the genitals. Be like, let's get the genitals involved, and it's I would say practically always the case that we need to build the muscle of awareness and our capacity to hold energy and to meet ourselves in the simplicity um, before moving towards those areas of the body that have been projected with much more shame. And that there's a time for that, that it comes after practice. And yeah, so getting good at this. This is called the take allow dynamic in the wheel of consent, and it's just one. Take is one quadrant out of four. You have take and allow. Like in this instance, the rock is allowing access to itself, right? So it doesn't really have a lot of choice. It could try and hide itself, I'm sure, but it's like there's a dynamic. I'm taking from this. I'm taking for my pleasure. It's for me. My contact with this is for me. And there's another dynamic, which is serve, accept, in which I would touch for the other. I serve. It's like giving a massage. And serve, accept. And in the wheel of consent, we pull these apart so that we get very clear about what we're doing and who it's for, because often it's completely muddled, right? It's like, oh gosh, yes, and very often we like to think we're doing one thing whilst actually doing the other. It's like, yes, I'm gonna pretend that this is for you. Like I'm gonna do this for you, right? But really it's for me. But I can't be honest about that because it's too much shame involved in being honest about doing something with you for me, right? Because of the indirect route of pleasure, we want to caretake. Your recording stopped, Jesus, by the way. We want to caretake or get the approval of the other, and often that the best way to do that is to have the pretense of serving that person. Right, just this is for you. It's all for you. It's a fascinating body of work, and I think for me personally essential in the journey of awakening. Yeah, because it absolutely necessarily involves opening up the body, and that requires integrity and authenticity in relationship, and that's what comes through this body of work. Any other questions or sharing?
a big transformation for me occurred when I realized that there was nothing wrong with being a lover to myself. Again, like, seems so obvious. It was like this light bulb went off. Like, wait a minute, I can touch myself the way that I would want, someone else to touch me.
Yeah.
And I've been exploring that. And it's just kind of blowing my mind, like, every time. Like, wow, no wonder those relationships ended, because I never would have gotten to this point.
That's so wonderful, John. I love that. I really, really love that. In this work, we talk about the gift, right? The gift. And what I recognize and witness in you is that you're receiving the gift. And there it is. It's like, yeah, wow. Oh my God. It's like I can give this gift of pleasure to myself. Right. And it doesn't have to be limited to a certain habitual way of going about things. It's like, and there's a whole body here. The whole body is a gift, right? Like that's the reality of it, is that the whole body is a gift that we have the potential to awaken to. And
And
that's
the
when we're
key
fully
to me
embracing that.
was that there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, but that's what opens the gift, right? Because if there's something wrong with it, you can't receive the gift. If that judgment's in place, you can't receive that gift. That's really beautiful, John. Thank you so much for sharing that. It's very inspiring, actually, to hear that and not just hear it, but to see and feel, yeah, your embodied experience of it. There's something very yeah, inspiring in that. So thank you. Mm. Ah, yeah. Mm. Mm. I want to say, like, what comes to me is like the gift is God, and the greatest gift is that we don't need anyone or anything to experience that gift of God. We only need our own permission. Right? That's what's been missing. It's like Yeshua says, it's like, the gap between you and God is the distance of a thought, right? And that thought is generally in one direction a judgment, and in the other direction it's forgiveness. It's permission, it's allowance. I love, he says that allowance is forgiveness, right? It's just giving ourselves permission, right, to experience God now. And there can be an awful lot in the way of that. I should know, right? Because I still have an awful lot in the way of that. And that's okay too. I can allow that as well. I can give permission for that experience to be there as well. And when I don't fight against it, it's going to dissolve. Jesus.
Yeah, what would be a good way to handle expectation? Because I think that's one of the big blockages of feeling more, is that my mind's already expecting to feel something extremely good. So it's like then it's going back to judgment and saying like, oh, it's fine, but it's not so great, you know.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I really get that. I really understand the parts that will be wanting something like extraordinary, like fireworks, and it's that whole fanfare of angels thing, isn't it? You know, it's like where's my fanfare of angels and fireworks, and why is my body not ablaze with this sensation? You know, and I always kind of look at it in a way like it's like we have to start where we are, right? And the system generally has been closed down. Like that's how we've maintained separation. We've closed down the system of the body. We've closed down the system of the mind. We've stopped ourselves from experiencing directly. And so even the tiniest little murmur of direct experience of pleasure is a huge win. Is a huge win. And I would maybe, open up a dialogue with the part that holds the expectation, and kind of get to know it a little bit. Like, what's the ground of that expectation? Where's it heard about that from? Where's its information coming from? Is it something it's experienced before? Is it something it's heard about? And just getting curious with it, like, what does it want? Truly.
I see that it wants extreme pleasure.
Right. Well, it's a beautiful desire, right? I think that I could sign up for that. That sounds great. And also a little intimidating and scary on the other side as well. It's like, oh, I get it, right? That's a beautiful desire. That's a beautiful desire. And I wonder if it would be willing to join on the first rung of the ladder on that journey.
Mm.
And that, this nervous system is going to take time to open to extreme pleasure. But that it's possible.
Mm.
In fact, I'm going to say it's inevitable.
Mm.
But it's going to take time. Because the system needs to develop. And it needs to trust the opening.
Yeah, thank
Baby
you.
steps, yeah, kind of incremental baby steps. But yeah, I think that part has a genuine, beautiful, God-expressed desire for more God, right? Essentially, if we're saying that the movement of life force through the system is pleasure, then that is life expressing, and that is God. So I'm down with that part. John?
Is there a difference, do you think, between you were just talking about opening or allowing the energy, almost like a water pipe? It's got to get used to the increased flow. I I tend to think of it more that shame or guilt is like the blockage, and you generally can't remove it all at once. You can remove, like almost like corrosion in the pipe. You remove a little, and then a little more. So are those maybe one and the same, do you think?
Yeah, I think that's exactly the same. I think the incremental steps are that parts in our mind learn to trust, to release the shame. And that, you know, sometimes we can go through processes where parts can unburden a lot more. And in my experience, I can have a big unburdening of shame, and yet there's still a flavor of it. There's still a little in the pipe. There's still a little that's stopping, that's obstructing that flow of energy. And so I think that there is this incremental reduction in fear, in guilt, in shame. And I think that that's linked with a reduction in judgment. And I think that all of those things allow for an incremental increase in light and in God and in pleasure and in confidence and in clarity, in calmness, in these qualities of love. Right? So I think they are exactly, it's just looking from one side or the other, you know, and they are directly linked as we dissolve through these what I would call qualities of separation. We obversely increase the flow of love and the qualities that it brings.
Thank you for that. That's like a confirmation for me. I noticed like some real progress, and then kind of flatlined a little, and then remembered again. Oh wait, don't watch that shame. Watch as it comes up and release it. And then I noticed again. Oh, there's that trajectory again. Okay.
Yeah, certainly my experience. You know, it's like expand, contract, elevate, plateau, descend, elevate, plateau, descend. So it's a spiral round and round and round, up and down, highs and, you know, it's just like, it's like, and then some days it's like I feel like I haven't even been on a journey at all. It's like I'm just back in the trough, you know. It's like, oh my God, that was all a waste of time, wasn't it? You know. And then it's like, oh my God, it's like I'm at the right hand of God. You know, everything's so beautiful. You know, it's I think I think it in many ways, you know, I mean, all of this is perfect, you know, and the journey is ironically not our own. And we show up to things like this and we practice together and we process and we work through stuff and we do stuff. But you know, it always comes down to the same thing, that it's like, you know, John and Jesus and Moira and Israel haven't shown up today. God has. And that this is a part of the journey of atonement. It's a part of that journey back into the wholeness of self and God. And that we don't actually need to do anything, right? Because it's all happening. But something brought you here today. Something brought me here today. And I can trust it. I can trust the flow, right? I can trust that. And some days it's going to feel like this, and some days it's going to feel like that. And actually, I can trust that too. Because the journey is orchestrated. Premeditated, if you like. Although I have my own theory around that, but I would say that the end is inevitable, right? That's the way I'd put it. You know, none of us are going to escape union with our creator. No, not possible. No matter how committed we might be, right, to the opposite.
What a comforting thought.
Yeah, it is, right? It is comforting and it's true. Hmm. Hmm. So we've got a few more minutes. And you know, if there's any sharing just about the whole process of today, um, then this is the space. If there's anything that wants to be shared, if there's any loose thread, if there's any question, if there's any part that wants to be heard or feel met and understood, then we have time. Moira.
I just want to say I have received so much from this workshop. Thank you. It feels like there's so much I can't actually identify it. I've been making notes all along, but it's I want to say I feel ripe for what's come up today. And really that no more delay. No more delay. It feels so clear. And whatever, and I know it's not going to happen overnight, and I really do know that. And it's gently, gently, with a lot of compassion. But it's time. And as you say, this simple practice of being with the hands is phenomenal. And thank you, Israel, for all of your wisdom that you've shared. Thank you. And knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you, Moira. Yeah. John.
What was I gonna say? Moira, thank you for your energy, and what you share just reminds me of in the Way of Mastery, where Yeshua talks about once you've made that decision, like you're clear on it, like it's already done. It's the result is inevitable at that point. And I want to say thank you to you, Israel. When we did that last exercise, I had a manager come up and I said, "Hey, we're here with Israel." And he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's true. All right, I can relax." So thank you for creating such a safe space, Israel.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, John. I want to acknowledge really those beings who I'm standing on the shoulders of. Dr. Betty Martin, who, through her own incredible journey has birthed the Wheel of Consent. Which what I love is on the surface it looks kind of a little bit like, oh yeah, you're just touching things. It's like, oh, you're making agreements, but it goes so deep, and she's masterful and brilliant, and she's created an extraordinary community of faculty members and brilliant trainers, and I couldn't recommend her work highly enough. And Dick Schwartz as well in the IFS, and what he's created there and continues to facilitate, and again, this incredible community of therapists. So those two modalities coming together are just so profound. And then Yeshua, of course, and JM, and the Way of Mastery, and those teachings through JM by Yeshua are so fundamentally exquisite, and I think that are somewhat inaccessible without IFS and the Wheel of Consent, and I just love that those two modalities, for me anyway, my journey, really ground the Way of Mastery into something accessible and cohesive and coherent, and something that works in the world, and in humanity, and it's exquisite. So Yeah, JM and Jeshua and Betty Martin and Dick Schwartz, thank you for your contribution. And then I get the opportunity to come and synthesize really and innovate these profound modalities into something hopefully semi-coherent in this space. Just my aim. Yes, Moira.
It was very coherent. It was,
Good.
just a thought occurred. I have the book sitting on my bookshelf, which has been there for at least 2 years. Does she do anything on YouTube? Do you know?
She doesn't have a lot on YouTube. She does have a YouTube channel, and it's worth checking out because she
Yeah,
does speak, and she has some videos up. Um, but there's not a great deal.
might
But
just do.
yeah, I
Yeah,
would I would suggest if you can at some point getting to some workshops.
yeah,
Because the people on the whole that I've seen, the people that she's trained are excellent. And they often run weekend workshops, and they're great workshops. They really, really are. But this practice, this is. I mean, there's many practices, but this practice is it's really fundamental, and it's so surprising
yeah,
because it seems quite innocuous. Um, and yet this quadrant take like you open up the ability to receive in this way, and everything changes.
yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Maura.
Yeah, thank you so much, Israel, for everything you shared. This is slowly coming back into a more cohesive thing in my mind. So thank you for everything you have shared. And yeah, thank you to Moira and John as well for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Jesus. And yeah, I really appreciate the nice words and the feedback. It's lovely to receive, and this is it's a beautiful group. Thanks, John and Jesus and Moira as well. And it's we just made it actually. I was going to cancel this workshop yesterday because I only had like a couple of people coming, and then I'd said to myself, any less than four and I'm cancelling. And then John booked in last night and he was the fourth. So it was like, okay, I was just about to cancel as well, John. I really was. It was on my mind to write an email to the group and something just stopped me. So great timing, perfect. I'm very glad that we had our group today. And there's a recording of this as well, and I'll be sending that recording out to you guys. And also that recording is available for other people to buy as well, as long as everyone's happy for that to happen. And we'll see how it goes. In my experience, people aren't buying any of my courses. At some point, I dare say someone might, and then you can have them. But yeah, it's a curious, and that's a part of my deepening in trust as well in my journey, and learning to value more what I do. But I am truly coming to value my work more, which is good and a product of my long journey around worth and self value. So yeah, all right, it's enough about me. Look at that, 5:55 it is. I think we're pretty good to wrap up. Yeah, does everyone feel complete? Yeah, brilliant. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah. Hopefully we
Thank
can
you.
stay in touch.
Bye bye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.